Okay guys, so today we're going to be looking at the first half of 12.3. So we're going to be moving away from segments for a little bit and start looking at angles. And today we're going to be translating and constructing angles, and then tomorrow we'll be looking at constructing angle bisectors. We did do this a couple weeks ago, so some of this should sound familiar to you, but follow along with me so that we can hopefully get it and it gets cemented in our brains. So in your notes packet, turn to page 682. And we are going to begin by looking at problem 1, translating an angle. So problem 1 says, in the previous lesson, you practiced translating a line segment on the coordinate plane horizontally or vertically. We did that in 12.1. We moved a segment around 4 times on the graph. So I want you guys right now, and you might need to pause the video for a little bit so everyone gets a chance, I want you to write in your own words how to translate a line segment on the coordinate plane. So here's what I came up with. And you may have had something a little bit different than this. That's okay. If it's totally different, change it so that it is similar. But to translate a line segment, we moved the endpoints of each segment, the distance and directions specified. So we just moved each individual endpoint, and that gave us the brand new line segment. So let's look at a definition. Get your highlighters out. And we're going to be looking at the definition of an angle. An angle is formed by 2 rays that share a common endpoint. That's the definition. Let's read what the rest of it says. The sides of the angle are represented by the 2 rays. Each ray of an angle contains an infinite number of line segments. But for the purposes of graphing an angle on the coordinate plane, we will label 1 line segment on each ray. So because rays go on forever in one direction, there's an infinite amount of segments we can make out of that, but we're just going to be looking at 1. So for number 2, we're going to analyze the angle DBM. And I want you guys right now for number 2, talk about in your groups, and pause the video while you do this, to describe how you would translate the angle on the coordinate plane. Here's what I came up with. So looking at the problem, they want us to take this angle, DBM, and they want us to translate it. I noticed that DBM is made up of a lot of little segments. So to translate it, I would translate each segment individually. And then that would still give me the angle that I'm looking for. So let's do problem number 3. We want to horizontally translate angle DBM 13 units to the left, and then we're going to label it angle D prime, B prime, M prime. So to do that, I'm going to move each individual endpoint 13 units to the left. So let's do endpoint D first. Now I'm noticing that every single line on this graph represents 2, 4, 6, 8, and then to the right and left 2, 4, 6, 8. So make sure that you are counting by 2s. Now this D is in the very middle, so that means that it's at a 1. So I'm going to go over to the first line, and that's going to give me 1. And then the next one is going to give me 2 more, so that's 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13 is going to be right here, still in between 2 endpoints. That's going to be D prime. Now let's do the same thing for M. If I move it first to the first grid line, that's going to be 1 unit because it's halfway. And then each grid line after that represents 2. So that's going to be 2. So we had 1 and 2, which is 3. 2 more is 5. 2 more is 7, 9, 11, 13. And remember, I'm not moving my endpoints up or down at all. So this is going to be M prime. And then B is already on the cross of a grid line, so this is going to be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and to do 13, I'm going to go right in the middle, and that is B prime. So to make my angle, I'm going to connect all three of these. And that is part 1. So what I want you guys to do right now, pause the video and do B and C for me. We are going to vertically translate angle D prime, B prime, M prime 15 units down. And that's going to be angle D double prime, B double prime, M double prime. So do that. And then you are going to horizontally translate D double prime, B double prime, M double prime 13 units to the right and label those triple primes. So pause the video and do those translations right now. So you guys should have done parts B and C. D prime, we were trying to move it 15 units down, and it's right in the middle. So 1 unit is going to give me to the next grid line, so that's 1. And then each one goes down by 2. So 2 more is going to be 3, 2 more is 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, and that's D double prime. We're going to do the same thing with M, and it's going to go all the way down to right here, and that's going to be M double prime. And then B prime is going to move down 15, so that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, and 1 more makes 15. So B double prime is going to be in the middle of those grid lines. So that's what your angle D double prime, B double prime, M double prime should have looked like. And then we were going to horizontally translate 13 units to the right. So we're actually going to end up exactly where, almost exactly where we started. So D triple prime, M triple prime should be somewhere right here, and B triple prime should be right here. So your translations should have looked like that. So I did 3 translations. If I wanted to end up back where I started, I would do 1 more translation, 15 units up to get back up to where I started. So that's all we're going to do with problem 1, translating angles. What I want you guys to be aware of is that as we're translating the angle around, the measure of the angle is not changing because it's the exact same angle, we're just shifting it all around. Shifting to the right or to the left, so horizontally, is changing my x coordinates but not my y's. And shifting up and down or vertically is what changes my y coordinates but not my x's. And the image and pre-images of all of these, the angle measure stays the same. So that's the important part here. So let's move on to problem 2, which is on page 684. So in problem 2, we're going to actually construct an angle using the line segments when we can't actually use measurements because we're not on a grid. So this is a second method of reconstructing an angle or duplicating an angle. So let's highlight that. You can also translate an angle not associated with a measurement. This basic geometric construction is called copying an angle or duplicating an angle, and the construction is performed using a compass and a straight edge. So get out a straight edge. You can use one of the rulers in the back, or you can use the side of your binder, and then get out your compasses that you have been borrowing from me, and let's look at the steps. So the steps here, the first step is to construct a starter line. So you're going to use your straight edge to construct a starter line right here. Let's label point C on the new segment. So that's what we did right here. We constructed a starter line and labeled it point C. And this is this angle that we want to copy. So the next thing we're going to do is construct an arc with center A. So you're going to open your compass and construct some kind of arc using A as the center. And then without moving your compass at all, you're going to move it down to part C and construct the exact same arc. So then what we're going to do is we're going to construct another arc. So we're going to label the intersection of this arc that we made on angle A as point B and point D. And we're going to measure the distance from point B to point D. And then we're going to construct a second arc on our segment starter. We're going to put our compass at point E and then construct another arc. And that's going to give us a point of intersection. So we will be able to construct a ray through that point of intersection, and that's going to give us congruent angles. You guys have done this already before, so hopefully it should be a refresher. In your homework for tonight, you will be doing several of these, but I want to go over the next problem with you on the next page, number 1, how to construct an angle that is twice the measure of angle A. So, the first thing I'm going to have to do if I want to construct an angle that's twice the measure of angle A, I'm pretty much going to want to construct 2 angle A's, but on top of each other. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to construct a starter line. I'm going to do it a little bit lower, and let's make a line. Put your arrows. And let's label a point C. So that's going to be our starting point. So the first thing I want to do is I want to construct an angle on my original angle that I'm copying, and I'm going to construct an arc of any size I want using point A as my center. So let's draw an arc like that. And we're going to construct that same arc using C as our center. So don't move your compass. Put it on C and then draw an arc like that. Our next step of copying is we want to label points. So let's label the points on our original arc B and D. And we are going to make the radius of the compass the same length as B and D. So for mine, I'm going to have to shrink it a little, and let's measure that. So then using the point of intersection right here, E, my compass is the same length BD, and we're just going to move it down and construct another arc right there, and we're going to label that point F. Let's draw a ray going through both of those. And now we have an angle ECF, and it is congruent to angle DAB. However, we wanted to make an angle that was twice the size of DAB, or angle A. So we're going to have to copy this segment again. So this time, to copy that segment, I'm going to use this ray CF, as my base. So I'm going to turn my paper a little bit so that it's flat, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing. So let's draw an arc the same length as we had before. So I'm going to put my compass all the way to AD, and I'm going to draw that arc, only this time using C as my base again, going this way. It should really just look like you're completing the circle. Then remember, we wanted to make our compass the same length as DB, so let's do that. But this time I'm going to use point F as my starting point on here. Oops, mine moved. So I'm going to use point F, and I'm going to make another arc. Let's call that point G. So the last thing I can do is I can make a segment going from C through G, and this time I'm going to use my pen. And now the angle that I drew in pen, going from here to here, is the same length as 2 of angle A. So here's my first angle A, and here's my second angle A. So putting them both together gives me an angle that is twice the size of angle A. And so that is constructing angles and translating angles. So you guys can start on your homework tonight, which is Skills Practice 12.3. But you are just doing problems 1 through 8. So go ahead and get started on those for today.